amazing on Ops Experts Club today. She got all the kiddos down and for nap and to school and everything. So way to be killer mom of the year. Savannah is an incredible mom and an incredible ops expert. So thank you, Savannah, for always showing up strong. Taryn is stuck in Miami, but he's going to Havana, whatever that song says. Like, you're going to have a good time in Havana tonight.
Yep.
And we have and we have the amazing Miss Eliza. Eliza, I just want to tell you this. So for those of you who have never got to meet Eliza before, Eliza is the EA to Steve Harward at Prime Corporate Services. And I got the privilege of getting to interview Eliza. And Eliza, I want you to know, we interview a lot of people at the CoLab team. We vet a lot of people, we recruit a lot of people, and you're a standout in our mind, not only for your interviewing, and obviously you got the job, and may I say, got well compensated for the job. Like, as far as you're a great compensated. But it's because you're a freaking badass of all proportions. I think that Stephanie's exact text to me, and I'll never forget it, was she texted me over as we were vetting different applicants for the EA position. We had a bunch, right? We had a bunch of people we were working through. She goes, "Oh my gosh, that lady was super impressive. I'd leave my kids with her today." Like, it's just like, just straight commitment, just met you on a Zoom call and just hand it off because you showed up so well in that whole interviewing process. And I just want you to know, not everybody always shows up that strong. So kudos to you for showing up so strong. And obviously it's led to a pretty awesome business opportunity. So
it did. Yep. Thank you. You're so nice.
No, I think, well, I'm not always this nice. Ask Taryn. I'm not always sometimes. So Ops Experts Club, for those of you guys who are here for the first time, maybe you're seeing us stream the first time, or maybe you've been here a bunch of times and you're wondering how it all goes. Ops Experts Club is just an opportunity for us to interview some people that we feel like are badasses in the industry doing what they do. And what we've really begun to lean into is not only just CEOs and director of ops and people that are running operations side of things, but we also realize there are a lot of really powerful executive assistants out there that really, I think of Ashley on John Acuff's team, who is his EA, but really she's like director of ops. Like, the lady is just a badass. She runs the whole show. And yeah, she's an EA by title on her email signature, but really, like, if you know anything about John Acuff's whole business, Ashley is the queen, like, she rules it. And so I think we've realized that there are EAs out there that do such powerful operations-based work, and that there are other EAs that are coming up in the ranks that would love to hear from them. And so, Eliza, you're one of the ones that was top of our list to bring in. And so I really appreciate you being willing to join us this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. It's great to be here.
Yeah. So usually we kick off these calls and we just kind of round robin a little bit about things that we've seen, things that we admire about it. I know Prime is a business that we all on this call really admire a lot, and all of us on this call have had some touching point with it. So maybe Taryn or Savannah, do you want to talk just a little bit about Prime and some of your experiences with Prime, or things that you've helped with Prime? I know, Taryn, you haven't been super deep because they've got a pretty badass wizard in the tech end of things with Darren and the whole tech end of an ops side of the business. Savannah, you've been really deep in the weeds with customer experience and meeting with them on L10s and helping them level up things and questions that they have around that. So maybe just speaking a little bit about Prime. Either of you have some experience you want to talk about Prime? We don't do this on the show. We don't do this on the show usually, so I'm totally putting you on the spot.
I'm just every time that I meet with, specifically with Eliza, and then just with Prime in general, I'm just super impressed by how much you guys do and how efficient you are. And it seems like you guys I know you guys keep expanding because you guys are growing really fast, but you have a pretty small core team. And I do feel like you guys really you guys do some big business. Like, you guys do a lot. And then seeing you come in, like, you haven't been there for super long, but you just jumped in with both feet and are like doing all the things. Like, every meeting that I'm in, like, Eliza's like kind of carrying the meeting along. And I know that you guys have had some transitions in customer experience. So you've been handling customer experience, and you're handling things with Steve, and you're in the leadership team. So Prime it's one of those ones where, like, we deal with a lot of wonderful smaller companies that are just starting, and coming into Prime is kind of different, where it's like, oh, I need to make sure that, like, I'm like, but it's Prime, I got to be ready for Prime. So I don't know, it's fun working with you guys. I feel like you guys are like kind of like another cat that we get to work.
Yeah, I think the powerful thing for me about Prime, I think, in getting involved, when Steve first tapped me on the shoulder and wanted to bring us in, I'm like, bro, you've got 85 plus employees. What do you need the collab team for? Obviously, you've been around for 9 years. Whatever you've been doing has been working. Usually we come in with people that are experiencing this spike, and they're like, holy hell, like we can't keep up with the volume. What are we supposed to do? But the thing I've really appreciated about Prime is obviously they help with establishing corporate credit, helping businesses establish taxes, establishing people's LLCs and get them on the right framework for corporate development. And then a whole slew of things come on the backside of that too. But I think that the coolest thing about Prime is that Darren is their director of ops, Steve is their CEO, Tommy is their president, Chris is their head of accounting, their COO. They saw this need for, but we need infrastructure development. We need to level up the leadership team on how we're making decisions. We feel like EOS could be a really big part of that. Could we just plug you in to help us roll out EOS? And really, they've taken that and really gone so far with it. Their scorecard, of all the scorecards we do, I feel like is the most impressive, because they had all the data. It was just they needed somewhere to put it all in one spot. So we were looking at all the story, and the story it told in a really comprehensive way. And their report card every week they're growing in their sales. Every week they're like, we just hit a banner month, a banner week, banner month. Like they're doing incredible things at Prime. And that's largely been through adding people like Eliza, adding systems like EOS. So it's been a super awesome ride for us. Darren, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Oh, for me, it was real interesting getting to work with an actual company with a physical location. I've worked a lot with virtual teams, so it's really cool to get to see that. Talk to some of the people there. Anytime I'm talking with people in a company, I'm always asking, what's it like to enjoy it there? Just trying to give them, a little opportunity if they need to vent, or if they, on my end, just to see, what our new clients are like. But I always heard great things. People love working for Prime. People enjoy it. It's been a great company to work for. And it's been fun, taking this in-person team and kind of doing our little hybrid, giving them our virtual EOS meetings. And it's been real neat to see.
I love that. So Eliza, this isn't your normal jam, right? Like, it's not like, I've always been doing this kind of work for these kinds of businesses, right? You came out of something very much different when you stepped into this role and became EA to the CEO, right? Somebody that is like, so let's qualify it for everybody here. And I'd love for you to tell us your story a little bit, but you were a badass long before you entered Prime, and you were doing some badass stuff for CEOs before you got to Prime. But really the step into Prime was pretty new, right? As far as this segment, doing this kind of work from where you came from. Maybe you could tell us your story a little bit.
Yeah, it was brand new, a different industry. I kind of have a knack for that. So 2015, I graduated college. I got recruited from Lululemon to then go from Lulu, where I was working retail, to Qualtrics. And I was recruited to be a recruiter. I was like, oh, great opportunity. Sure. Young company, heart of, Provo, Utah. It's local. Sure. I'll give it a go. So I was there for about 2 years. And that's where I got a lot of experience with I've always been an organized person, but then really honing in the skill set and how to use that and run other people's calendars and kind of their life. And so I worked with a lot of different hiring managers from there. And so many people always were like, you would be the perfect EA. I'm like, that could be right up my alley. So kind of funny. I had an opportunity come up to be an executive assistant for a CEO, but in the automotive industry. So I went from tech to auto, which if anybody knows, they're pretty notorious for being male dominated. So, 26-year-old me, I'm like, I got this, go. And I do that for 5.5 years. Super great, learned a lot, worked with the CEO directly, but then I also worked with all of his executive team and the vice presidents there. And then an opportunity came up from a good friend of mine that reached out and said, hey, my boss CEO is looking for an EA. Would you be interested? I'm sure you're happy. And I was like, sure. What do I have to lose to talk to someone? If you love it, like, why not? So I went from automotive to this online marketing space, which is vastly different and runs very, very fast, very, very similar to Qualtrics and the speed of how things are running and how we're growing. So it's pretty awesome.
All of us on this call came out of some sort of brick and mortar into like the online space. And I tell Taryn this all the time. I feel like for the first 2 years, I'm like, what the hell are we selling? What are we doing here? You know what I mean? Because you come out of a retail environment, or for us, there was a lot of coffee on the collab team, people working in coffee management and coffee operations for coffee chains. And you go from a craft product that you're putting out across a physical counter to people that you see face to face into this virtual world where you're like, wait, we just threw up a landing page that we just created yesterday with this product that's multiple thousands of dollars, and people clicked yes. And that was the experience. Like, wait a minute, like there's no human interaction. Like the interaction actually happens on the backside in fulfillment. And there's like, it's just a totally new muscle. Like, it's like, this is a much different. And for me, I think it's so theoretical a lot of times. Taryn has actually been a faster adapter to it than me. But for a while, I was like, I almost felt like a fraud, like the first year or two into it. Cause I'm like, I don't even know what we're doing. I know operations. I know how to help people run things. But when we start getting into the products they're selling and how they're fulfilling them, this is literally a new language that we're speaking right now. But I think obviously now, having worked with some of the greats out there, the Pete Vargases, the Keith Yackis, the Pedro Adeos, the Pace Morbies, which is an introduction that came to us through Prime, really grateful for. We've got to work with some great people selling online, but it's new, it's different. And Eliza, your journey is crazy because you came out of tech, you stepped into auto, which I feel like is probably pretty low tech, right? Like they're not like cutting edge.
They were like, it was just funny when they were like, yeah, we're so fast paced for our industry. And I got there and I sat down and it went from the future to like the dinosaur age.
1982.
I was just like, I've never seen a screen like that. That is very, like the black screen, blue writing, and then the weird characters. I was like, why do we have that?
Yeah. I watch people all the time when I buy cars or lease cars or do whatever I do, and I watch the platforms they're built on, and I think, holy 1993, like we've got to get you guys onto a different platform, and this should not take me 8 hours to buy a car right now. Like,
so
I bought from you 3 years ago. You already have all my data. What could you possibly need from me? I'll sign it once, paste that across the 12 pages you want me to go through meticulously, and click and sign and click and sign. Like, it's obviously a much different tech game. And so kudos to you for such adaptability from retail to tech to cars to now something so amazing as Prime. And even Prime, I feel like they're pretty cutting edge with the way they're using Salesforce. Taryn, I don't know if you had something you want to say to that. I know you were leaning in.
I was just thinking that it seems like every time we're talking with some people we're bringing on here, we're always talking about how fast things move in these industries. You're thinking of a product one day, you're selling it the next day, and that doesn't happen anywhere else.
Yeah, definitely not in the car industry, right? The car industry, like, you're waiting for next year's models to hit your lot, and you thought early was October. You know what I'm saying? And we're like, no, let me send you. The CEO just walked in with a new idea. He wants us to have it on a website and emails going out, blasting social media by this evening. We haven't even built the product yet. He just wants to sell it, and then we'll build it on the backside. Like, who does that? No, but in this space, that happens all the time. You're building the plane you're flying is the accurate, or the idea that we always throw out there. This is the image we're giving people. No, the plane's in the air. Somebody get on that wing. Otherwise, this isn't going to go well. Like, we need to make sure we're landing. So.
But Eliza, yours is kind of like Prime in general is kind of different in that aspect where you have a visionary like Steve, who's very energetic and stuff, but you can't, you guys are kind of in a different space than some of the other like entrepreneurs that are just rolling out products, because so much of what you guys do deals with like legality and so much more like paperwork. Have you,
right? Yeah.
Have you guys, have you experienced that pushback where like you guys are trying to implement an idea quickly, but you guys have to like consult more outside folks, or how has that changed like how fast things move?
Yeah, I think it just depends on the situation, but a lot of it is, hey, Steve, visionary, has all these ideas, and it's usually like reining it back, like, hey, we actually need to stay here. We need to stay focused. If we do this, you have all these ideas, but like, we need to get these honed in first to be able to do all of that. And it will be a lot less painful if we implement the first, the steps and the path to do that. And it's so hard for not just him, but like other leaders in general. They just are like, well, we want to do it tomorrow. It's like, great, but like, we do have to cross our T's and dot our I's so we don't run into issues later, and like a few months later, weeks later.
Yeah, I feel like you guys probably have to deal with that so much, because like every operations crew kind of has to deal with that a little bit, because we're like, come on, like, let's not all light the team on fire to get this over the finish line. but like where you guys are dealing with like taxes and things like that, like I feel like your team probably has an even bigger role in that, with being like, slow your roll, hold on, like
Well,
let's like
not only
cross
that, but I think like what you guys do is kind of like what Collab does, in that you're offering a service to other crazy entrepreneurs out there. Like, so Steve, the light, the on fire of Prime more than anything is not just Steve's, like, cause right, all visionaries are a little bit crazy, right? Let's just acknowledge that they've got a little bit crazy in them, and that's great. That's what we love about them, right? That's what makes everything so electric. It is also what sends a shock through the line when people are holding onto the line when they plug us in, right? Like it can get kind of crazy, but it's not just Steve's electricity, but Steve's superpower is networking with all these other crazy entrepreneurs out there that are plugging into Prime services. So it's like, it's not just like Steve's crazy that Eliza's having to manage, but it's like all these other ones, like Pace Morby sends thousands of clients at Prime all the time. Like Steven Diaz, another one of our clients at Rainmakers, sends hundreds, if not thousands of clients at Prime all the time. And those are just a couple of the guys. Pedro Adeo sends thousands of clients at Prime all the time. So you plug into these other very electric, like knee-jerk decision-making visionaries out there, and plug them into Steve's superpower. That's what makes Eliza badass. Is she's like, no, wait a minute, you're just talking about Steve? No, I can handle Steve. It's the 55 other high-level entrepreneurs that are all shoving volume down us that makes it so crazy. And then Steve has got one of the biggest hearts of all the people we work with. Steve is such a heart-centered guy that he wants to show up powerfully to serve the clients that you guys service, and so that makes, Eliza, I would imagine, your job super tough too, because you're trying to speak to Steve's intense desire to serve, plus all these entrepreneurs that have these knee-jerk last-minute requests they're rolling at you, and then just trying to infrastructure. I know you work closely with Darren. Darren is a badass. Like, just hats off to Darren. We've had him on the Ops Experts Club of how he manages that, because that's a lot of volume. That's a lot of energy.
Yeah, and I think too, it's helped just with where I've been from Qualtrics, working with all the different hiring managers and their personalities, to thinking, okay, like I can handle that. Then going to automotive, and you think, tech is personality, and you have these mostly men, right, that are general managers that I have to communicate with and work with, on top of the leadership team at the corporate office where I sat, and working with all of them and trying to really, I think, break down and let their walls come down so that their egos are kind of pushed to the side. So then real decisions can be made, right? I think that's like the hardest thing is, especially in this business, I thought I saw personality in the automotive side, but there's so much personality because of the visionaries and all the entrepreneurs and their ideas, that their idea is the best. And so how can you break down those barriers for them to see a different perspective that will actually make the best product?
I think that, and so we've got 10 minutes with you, and I want to make sure that we honor the time with you as well. There are 3 things I'd love for you to hit. So obviously we always talk about, we talked about who you're from, but like one of the greatest lessons you've learned or taught, one of the most difficult things you've been up against, either in the past or in the present. But I'd also like you to speak to something that I know is super near and dear to your heart, and you've touched on it a couple of times now. I want to acknowledge it, is empowering women in the workplace. I think that that's something that's near and dear to your heart, is something you put a lot of energy into. And can I just say this, and I'm hoping this is as PC as possible, but like a lot of high-powered ladies can come off a little bit bitchy, like as far as they're hard to handle, like because they're pushing so hard against being, suppressed for so long, like the pushback, it's hard to bear them because the pushback is so strong. But I'll say this, you do it so elegantly. I feel like where you're a strong female leader that pushes, but I feel like you know how to temper it and make it in a way that's palatable, but still not let go of the agenda of no, like, women are badass. Women are badass in this industry. Women bring such a power to this industry, and I'm not going to let that just go quiet. And I'm not just going to push them down because of gender. And I think that you do that amazingly. So anyway, if you can speak to those 3 things in whatever order you want, I just want to open that up to you.
Yeah, that's great. So I think kind of something to tee it up would be something that I've learned was I used to plan an event every year. I planned a lot of events, but the main event that I planned was the leadership conference, where across the nation, we would bring in all the leaders, all the general managers, all the vice presidents, and some of the regional teams as well to California. And I had to collaborate a lot with different teams, get input, but then ultimately put on this 3-day, 4-day conference, and not only help with they did a lot of the planning for what content would be in the conference, but finding guest speakers, finding places to eat, and then finding activities that 120 people who are very, very different can all do or would want to do. And so kind of hard. So typically it was golf and the spa to accommodate for people who don't want to golf. They could go to the spa or they could go to the pool, hang out, whatever they wanted to do. So I had this brilliant idea. I'm like, we're in California. It's great weather. It's November and we're in Palm Springs. So 80 degrees. Why would we not do a pickleball tournament? And I ran that by my boss and he was like, pickleball? Why would we do that? That sounds horrible. I'm like, networking, anybody, literally, if you've ever played it, anybody can play. It's any level. It's fun. And if you really didn't want to play, we'll have dinner at the courts and we'll just do that. So he was just like, kind of like, no, we're not doing that. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to the other vice presidents and I'm going to get buy-in because I can sell this and I am confident that this will be a kick-ass event and I'm ready to do it. So I go to each one, have the same spiel, like it's networking, it's fun, anyone can do it. And they were like, that sounds awesome. I go, okay, then maybe chirp in Bretzer, a little bit and say, hey, like how awesome it would be. So they do. He's still unsure going into it. And he was like, we're just going to keep this event quiet. We're going to make it a surprise, all this, because he didn't know how it's going to go. Well, it was such a hit that they've continued to do it the last few years. And everybody is like, who am I going to get paired with? Like, I want to choose my teammate. I'm like, nope, it's at random. Sorry. But like, that was just one way of figuring out how to break down someone's ego of like, this is going to be really stupid to, hey, let me figure out how I can get other people bought in to show him that this would be an awesome event and that everyone will enjoy it and it will be a hit.
I love that. Karen's the pickleball
Beautiful.
champion of Pacific
Are
Northwest.
you?
Yeah,
That's
Aaron's
awesome.
also a really big liar. So
It
you
was
can-
invented in Washington State. It was invented on Bainbridge Island.
Oh, there you go.
I got
Washington's
to-
a great state for so many reasons.
We're baiting her that way. We're baiting her to the Pacific Northwest. We can't even talk
That's a
about
great-
Pacific Northwest in Eliza's mind.
It's a great story.
So that's
You do it with
that's
confidence.
yeah, exactly. Confidence backs a lot, but it was a lot of fun and I was happy to do it. So it was great. But kind of going back to the other question, I think it was the biggest hurdle, which also ties into my passion for women's empowerment, is being in a male dominated space for the bulk of my career. I was there for 5.5 years and 19% of 5,000 employees, so 950 were female.
Wow.
Which is very, very minor. And so you can imagine just not fitting in and not being heard or even having a voice to be able to speak up very often. And when you do, people kind of look at you like, whoa, okay, that's all right. And then kind of dismissive and moved on. And so as someone who's really outspoken, as Aaron and the team knows, like I don't shy away a lot. I was very quiet for 5.5 years, which is very weird. And so I think the biggest lesson I learned from being there was being your own advocate, whether you're female, whether you're a man, or of any other diverse background. I think that the best person that can advocate for you is yourself, whether that is going for a pay raise and you're ready for it and you have the backing to do it, or if it's, finding like just something small, but advocating for yourself. And I would also say, if you're ever at a table and you see something where someone's being dismissed or they didn't get to finish their train of thought, or even worse, someone said something, it wasn't listened to, and then someone else that was listened to said the exact same thing and gets credit for it, point it out, call it out, stand up and use your voice, because that is very, very powerful and it can change the trajectory of a lot of people's careers.
It's so good. So good. I know, Savannah, like you being mom, like I think that we talked about this a little bit a couple of weeks back. I got you choked up, so I'm not going there again because I got you choked up in the middle of the call. But I think that the mom and ladies, like you juggle so many things that men just take for granted. I mean, like that they're not feeling the weight of necessarily kids at home that they're responsible for, or things at home they're responsible for, but they enter the workplace and then they're juggling the load of two things, right? Like showing up powerfully at work and still showing up powerfully at home. And not that dads have a lesser degree than mom at home, but still, like mom, I think, feels that weight just for being mom more, like birthing these children, feeling more responsible. I'd say typically that, is something that moms carry. And just to see women show up powerfully in the workplace and knowing the powerhouse they are at home, Savannah, I feel like you've really exampled that for a collab team in a powerful way of being a powerful mom at home. And every time you show up, people always make comments back to me of, Savannah's a freaking badass. And I'm like, I know she is. She's like our hidden treasure because she only wants a certain amount of hours. So I've got to kind of keep her in the, I don't want to put her in full limelight because everybody's like, I want Savannah. I want Savannah. I'm like, not everybody gets Savannah. Like we got to back that one down. But I think that I love that, Eliza, because I think like what you said is so true on highlighting the people for their skill set, their abilities, and not letting people fall in the shadows just because they don't match a gender profile that is like being raised up in an industry. Like I think you've done some great stuff and you've done some pretty powerful things. Do you want to talk about that for a minute? Just some of the
Sure.
things
Yeah. So I was really passionate about, and still am, I'm very passionate about diversity and making workplace culture better for every single person who walks in the door, no matter what you look like. And that was a mission that I had at GARF, where we started this series called the Women Empowerment Speaker Series. And it was for basically everybody, especially it sounds like it was just targeted for women only. And it was a good space that women could join. And it was on Zoom because we're nationwide. And so we would have a guest speaker come in, and we had a committee. So I would lead one of those meetings. Another female leader would lead out with the guest speaker and introduce them and kind of do something similar where you go back and forth. It was live, but it was really cool because it created a shift. We did it every other month where women in the dealerships would come together and sit. And it was really cool to see the general managers buy in, who there was only one female general manager, all else others were men. So out of the 62 rooftops, 61 are men. And it was cool to see the ones that really made it special for the females to be able to go into a conference space and sit down and come together and watch it as a team. And so that was really, really unique to watch that shift, because as much as I could push and speak from the rooftops about how amazing women are and how much more it's needed to have more diversity in the company, it needed to come from the top. It always does, right? If the CEO doesn't have buy-in, if the leaders don't have buy-in, it's never going to trickle down. And so that was really the part where you had to get the buy-in, was from the top. And it was cool if they would speak to it, what can happen. And I think that I created a ripple effect. I've heard a lot after I've been gone of what's happened there. And it's cool to see that like things take time. And that would be, if I would have stayed there, it would have been a career long 20, 30 plus year transformation, just because that industry has been around for so long. But it's really cool to see how someone so small can make a difference, but you have to be willing to be passionate about it and really keep pressing when is the right time. If you push, like, no, it's not always going to work, but like knowing and doing the research and backing it and speaking up when the times are right, it's kind of the niche you have to have.
I think it's so powerful. So powerful. I think, thank you for sharing. Thank you for all that you do. I think that obviously so commendable. The things that you've done, you're so young, and yet you've done so many powerful things, and and kudos to you for where you've been. I'm excited to see you continue to grow on your trajectory with Prime. Yeah, because I don't think you're going to stop here. And you were pretty clear on Steve with, hey, so I'll start with this and I'll do this for some time and I'll earn my space, but I want a bigger seat at the table at some point. I'm excited to see what that bigger seat at the table is.
Yeah.
And just thank you for joining us on Ops Experts Club, sharing with us your wisdom. So grateful for you. Looking forward to seeing you on our next L10 next week. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for the opportunity. It was great to be with y'all.
Yes. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, Eliza.
Yep. See ya.